Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 52 of Ilos modded Cities Skylines build. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for all support. The last time out in Ilos, you guys really enjoyed our sort of take on a modded park life zoo area, and it came out really nicely. Lots of nice ideas all piecing together here, and look how busy it is as well. Lots of Ilosian sims coming to enjoy it, which is always nice. It's very fun. We just had a ton of fun piecing all this stuff together, so thank you very much indeed for all the support on it. Of course, the new alien coven is here as well, courtesy of Diaxis. Thank you for all the assets. This is so funny. I just noticed the lips on it as well. That is hilarious, isn't it? Fantastic, so thank you for all the support on the streams as well. However, in today's episode, we are heading east, far east actually, all the way back through the downtown. All the way back through these spaces and right across the east, because we're going to be doing another rural town build today, and indeed based off of a real life location in Nevada. This time is where our inspiration is coming from, and I think just over here there's a nice little spot. Well, it's actually not nice or little, it's actually vast and dry. It's very rural desert, but over here, right on the outskirts of basically all of Ilos' main infrastructure, we do just have this little sort of overgrown plot of desert that sits at the foot of one of Ilos' southern mountain ranges. So let's head into Google Earth and find out exactly what the inspiration is today. Okay everyone, welcome to Nevada, specifically on the outskirts of Vegas. Now for those fans of Fallout New Vegas, and I hope there is a few of you, you are going to recognize today's inspiration. This is going to be Goodsprings. So the last rural town we built in Ilos was Williams, and that was a very touristic town. It was inspired off of the real Williams in Arizona, of course, which is a very touristic town. People heading in and out of the Grand Canyon all year round, etc. But Goodsprings is not. Goodsprings is a real rural desert town out in the middle of the Nevada mountains. And it's very simplistic, but because of this we end up with a very unique style. So we can definitely take some inspiration in terms of the roads that are being used here. We do have these classic American 2-lane roads with the yellow dash in them. Or the yellow strip, I guess it's not a dash, is it? And then just some really kind of rudimentary basic country rural grids, dirt roads here as well. And quite a thick, very green vegetation palette for the area here as well, which I think is pretty nice. So we can definitely get involved with some new trees today, and then some fun little junctions to sort of take inspiration from here, and then we can even get down into the street view here, thankfully, and get a real impression of just what this place looks like. There's also a church up here as well, which we can use with a repeated juniper pattern all the way out here in the desert, but lots of power lines, lots of dry shrubs, and cute little nuances that we can do with Move It and IMT and the mods that will help us construct this sort of stuff. But we just get a general impression of it, right? It's very dry, it's quite desolate. There is also the famous Goodsprings Saloon down at the entrance to the town, again, for which fans of Fallout New Vegas will absolutely recognize the Pioneer Saloon over here. So we definitely got a little bit of saloonage and power lines, rural, desert, dry vibes to have fun with today. So indeed, it should be a fun one. Let's build another desert rural town in Cities Skylines. Okay, so the first thing we'll do today is start working with some frames. So we did see this road here. So we are working with some of these country roads in Ilos, but I think for at least this main one that kind of comes through, I'd actually like this to become the yellow dash. Again, I'm just sort of seeing what sort of road configurations are knocking around in and around Nevada. We will definitely use this country road in the build today, but for the main road into town, I would like it to be this US 2-lane one. So let's bring it out now. So we're going to just start coming out here, and let's just get in a little bit of a curve, and then we'll straighten out, and then we'll use this sort of angle now as the main spine for the town to form around, hopefully. Let's turn our tree anarchy off as well. Okay, so we'll just keep the road coming up here, right? We use that as a general sort of spine. So I did mention as well that we have sort of like a saloon here, and I definitely like this on the way sort of into town. If anything, we're going to need to forest brush this a little bit harshly at first, just so we don't get any sort of weird clipping. but we will bring it back during our D10 time lapse because otherwise it looks very naked and a little bit unnatural without that desert overgrowth on it. This should be fun. Right, okay, so we're going to come into the town here where we've got this nice little curve. We're going to come around, and then this will be sort of the main stretch of town. Let's go for here. So we do have some nice rural roads that we can also use. Yeah, it's this 2-lane country road that I'm keen on using, isn't it? Okay, so we've got some perfect commercial assets in our collection from King Leno that would lend itself very well to this vibe. So I think we're going to go with this one. This is Vic and Bill's Market, which I think blends nicely into our theme. It's not quite the saloon, of course, but I don't have a saloon asset. But I think some of the content creator stuff, specifically University City, would actually work pretty much on this sort of theme, I think. Maybe if we got some of these in. Is it this one that I want? The Skybar corner is a little bit too modern, I think. I don't really want towels and chairs out the front. It's really that kind of older sort of brick style that I'm looking for immediately. Okay, something like that. Little vending machine there as you arrive into town. Don't think that's the most horrendous thing, is it? Okay. A little bit underwhelming right now, of course. And there is only 2 buildings, so I think we might just leave it at 2. Again, we are playing with a lot of workshop assets at this point, so we could also maybe grab one of those commercial corners as well. How does that look? That one's got a tavern on it, maybe. And then Wild Things Pizzeria and Deli. I feel like Goodsprings wouldn't have a deli, I don't think. Whatever, we'll bring them over anyway. So let's have the corner asset, of course, on the corner. That's going to make more sense, and then we'll drag these 2 up to sit next door to it. Let's make sure we're not losing any sort of major detailing here. We should be okay, I think. So I'm thinking that if the town in real life is called Goodsprings, then why don't we call this Bad Geezer? Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, down to Bad Geezer. Kind of flows off the tongue, doesn't it? I'm not sure. we'll let the comments decide that one, whether or not that stays or not. If not, please do leave suggestions down below for it. So we definitely want some parking behind here as well. So kind of in Goodsprings, they're just parking on the dirt, but we will use a little bit of 16 meter poorly maintained here, I think, without a road guideline snap. Which way do we want this? It's coming from the other direction, so let's go for that one. There we go, and then in. Cool, so the car is going to drive on the dark side of the road, and then we'll throw in some cute little angled parking here as well. Let's go for the angles here. Let's go for a little 4-dash one. And then we'll have some disabled access alongside just there, which should do us a job. Okay, so that's not going to be too bad for right now. So really this whole build wants a lot of chain link fencing and desert overgrowth to really tie it together, but we'll slowly piece together and sort of see what we think here. So we've got our main little sort of starter commercial setup. That's going to be fine. Let's now move into a road time lapse here where we can sketch out some of our frames and sort of visualize the rest of the town if we like. So we'll be right back. Okay, so outside of this little opening commercial strip, let's actually head now into the town and sort of see what's happening. So use node controller to square off all the nodes and then remove the road markings. And we're left with what is a very kind of basic, pretty traditional, rudimentary American grid frame for a rural town, but it's pretty much like for Goodsprings, almost exactly, actually. But yeah, it'll do a job for us, and it just sits pretty tastefully here. I love this. Never thought of doing that before with the road, but it works. It looks really cool as well. I think we could possibly even gravel paint that too, I imagine. Yeah, do a little bit of gravel in there, and I can't help it. I can't help it. Let's just do some detailing. This looks really fun to detail. Let's get some tall brown grass. And then again, it's kind of green here. I think I need to remember that as we're detailing it all up, that this isn't sort of dry parched desert all the time. There is some pretty sort of leafy boys knocking around in this part. And then why don't we see if we can find some saguaros. Let's filter by small trees. I'm quite keen on the saguaro young. Have we got any sort of thin cylindrical boys? Are these gonna work with prop line tool? Oh my goodness. That is oh dear. That is a familiar sight, isn't it, everyone? Goodness gracious me. Tree anarchy on this particular tree is an experience to say the least. If you're wondering how I'm doing this, by the way, it's not hormones or anything. It is indeed just the more than or less than keys with the tree anarchy mod, if you are using it. Right, but I think that's pretty tasteful. I love that at the end of the road. That's so cool. Oh my goodness, yes please everyone. That's very fun. That was possibly the most fun I've had in Ilos. That one very specific spot, that was great. That was just fantastic. Okay, anyway, let's crack on with the build. So let's do a little bit more forest brushing here where we've got things that we don't want them to be. So again, just glancing back to what's happening sort of in and around Goodsprings, we can see that we have a community church up here. So we do actually have some church assets in our collection, thankfully. And I think the old country church here is going to be sort of near perfect for what I'm after. So let's chuck this there for right now. I'd also like to grab a little holding road for this to sort of sit on at the head of the town. We'll go ahead and throw this down here. Sort of ye old country church, if you like. I'm pretty happy with that. I imagine, would it be centered at the head of the road for some sort of historical purpose, perhaps? It could be. I guess it kind of looks nicer there as well, doesn't it? So let's go with that. Then I'd like to place in some death care because we do have the realistic working cemeteries, courtesy of the workshop, which are just fabulous. I absolutely love these assets. So much better than the base game one. Cool. So I just want those headstones. I imagine many people would have died out here over the years, and I think a little bit of sort of tasteful, sort of dilapidated prop fencing would be welcome through this area. Maybe, I think chain link fencing actually is probably going to be the most appropriate, isn't it? I think it is. So we'll stick a linear fence for them and find out together. Is it indeed? I think it is, yeah. Let's go for the old faithful chain link fencing then. And then again, I can't help myself. I just want to do a little bit of grass work here together, okay? Hopefully the detailing today isn't too annoying. I don't want to scare some of you off, but there's a lot of fun overgrowth detailing to be had today, which we don't get to do in the rest of Ilos, of course, because it's so metropolitan and built up. We don't really get to do this sort of fun little custom overgrowth belts like this. And this is really the only reason I play this game, is to do stuff like this. This is the best. I'm having just the best time. Okay, so I think a little bit of drier desert belt next to that graveyard now should really start seeing at least some sort of theme arrive home, right? Imagine the people that live out here are kind of, don't take kindly to the big city folk. Like that they can see all the way over there in those high-rise towers in downtown Ilos. Very cool, but we now have a little church in here as well. So I'd like to wrap up the facility by bringing in a little curve here. Let's go for a 6 and then 8 perhaps. I think that's quite nice, isn't it? And then we also actually know the curve. I actually really hate the curve. curve is very out of character with the rest of the frames. It really hurts it, I think. So another thing we had in Goodsprings was the town library, which is actually next door to a school. So again, I think we can get away with it by including it here. So again, kind of within Goodsprings itself, the main road doesn't really have anything on it apart from this opening sort of saloon and commercial here. So I don't really want to sort of place things on this road. Everything's kind of off to the side like this. Now, I think that the historical library from the Seaside Resort stuff is absolutely the perfect vibe for this, isn't it? So we'll definitely use that library instead. Have sort of an older, more traditional Western style building out this way. Cool, so I'm happy with that. And then we also have a high school or a elementary school here as well. So we will definitely factor that in. Let's go ahead and find ourselves a parking road. So we don't have a high school in Goodsprings. I'm guessing for that level of education you will need to leave this sort of town. Again, not entirely sure how it works. If we do have anyone living in sort of like rural Nevada or rural Arizona, it'd be very interesting to hear what the communities are like in the comments. So let's get some parking in. Can we squeeze in some disabled at the top? Yes, we can. Tremendous. Cool. And then we'll grab ourselves a school. Any old school will do. We'll probably go for one of the workshop ones, I imagine. The helm is a bit too posh, isn't it? Yes. I think generic American elementary school is the vibe that I'm after. Let's bring all these in so everyone's sort of set up here. Yes, I'm pretty happy with this, I think. And then we'll bring in a little road just to supplement it along the sides. Sort of, again, give it a bit more of a border. And then I think just a classic vanilla park asset here. Probably something like the small playground will go quite a long way. And again, this is where we're really kind of seeing that sort of much greener, almost live oak kind of evergreen belt coming in here. It's not like totally desert. So I think we'll just start out with like a base layer of some sort of thick leafier numbers. Okay, just sort of create that natural edge around the school here. We'll definitely get lots of overgrowth in there too. A nice base layer along the floor. Then let's move down to some of our dry grasses as well, because these are obviously a really important vibe in this kind of green belt. So we'll get lots of brown grass in there too. This could actually probably do with being made into a forest brush, to be fair. Would make it, using it in the future, a lot easier. Okay, that's all it needs, isn't it? Just tall oaky trees, then dry desert grass beneath. Seems to be what we're playing with in Goodsprings, with perhaps the occasional sort of saguaros or cacti knocking about. And then again, I think a little bit of chain link boundary just around the edge here is just going to help the build settle in that little bit more and a little bit easier. I think because I don't really want a vast amount of concrete knocking about today, we will end up using this tool right here, which is the clip one, which actually removes concrete where you don't want it. So that's quite handy for what I want to happen here. Cool, but as a little rural sort of school campus there to sit alongside the historical library and our church, we're now just starting to see a little bit more personality creep into Bad Geezer. So let's have a little chat now about what's going to sit within the kind of internal frames. Again, Google Earth back to IRL Goodsprings is an enormous sort of helpful point of reference here. But thankfully, we already have a theme made up for like single story, low income sort of housing. And there is a real mix of different styles and kind of happenings in Goodsprings. It definitely isn't a one size fits all. So we'll choose through some assets together. Again, it's a real mix of styles. There's trailers out here. What looks to be sort of like more sort of like sparser kind of ranch style housing like this that knocks around in a couple of different locations. Okay, we can sort of, but everything's set off the main road, right? And then between this we've got lots of dry desert, sort of thick bush, and imagine a fair amount of tumbleweed knocking around as well, hopefully, right? Seems the place you definitely find tumbleweed, right? So of course this is great. Okay, we can place a lot of these during our detailing time lapse, and certainly some of our college assets from King Leno's Packwood Absolutely work a treat in this kind of build. So we can definitely factor some of these in, especially when we get like the little broken swing sets and the crap trucks outside. No, this is very much sort of on theme, isn't it? I love the abandoned shopping trolley here too. Yeah, that's very much sort of the theme that I want for this outer line town, right? Definitely not right next door to each other. They got a little bit of space, and no consistency or rhythm to the placement of the housing as well is something that seems to be present in Goodsprings. However, sort of internally in the town here in Goodsprings, there seems to be kind of storage yards. Now, I'm assuming that these would maybe belong to the people that live in the nearby plot. So, for example, we can see that maybe half of one of these little sort of plots of land here in the middle of Goodsprings has sort of like a chain link fence area in it, and then we can delete the entrance of one of these. There's various kind of like trucks and props and sort of just kind of random crap. It's the best way to kind of possibly describe what is just lying in here. Again, it really is sort of worth checking in on Google Earth occasionally and just sort of seeing what madness there is. So I do have an RV prop. Is the game going to make me fly all the way over to get it? I can never remember what it's called. We will go ahead and find it. So there's a Breaking Bad RV all the way out here, right? That's what we want. I think it's called Winnebago, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. So we'll take this, because there is RVs being stored in this little yard over here, which does sort of beg the question, doesn't it? You know, is sort of the real life Walt and Jesse out this way? And then of course lots of overgrowth, so we can now begin to grab some pallets of things we've already done. So this little generic cactus and overgrown belt that I've got here is going to work really nicely if we're just sitting up against this bit, and then we can copy a bit more of it and spin it around, and before you know it, we now have kind of a total new variation of our little desert grass belt there. And then again next to it, we now sort of move into perhaps some more trailer vibes. So I might want to maybe perhaps have a few kind of sporadic random trailers knocking around it before we move back into our King Leno sort of ranch housing, which then just kind of continues next to it, and then it switches up again into different themes and variants, and it's very random, very alien to someone like me from the north of England to just have a town like this. It's very sporadic, very, I guess the kind of the take-home point of spending so much time studying the southwest of America is there seems to be no logic to anything. Very erratic, very random. But it makes for a fun Cities Skylines build anyway. So this is what we're doing with our housing, right? Just get all this popped in. And then we'll save this for our D10 time-lapse, but you kind of get the idea of what's going to be happening here, hopefully. These guys are also dangerously close to Area 51 as well. We'll definitely have to get an alien coven out here during our next live stream. That should be fun. Absolutely love the signs here. Very appropriate position as well, isn't it, considering the very secretive army bases over there down the road, right? I really love this part of the map. We haven't been down here for a real long time. Like, really long time. Isn't there a coven here? I thought there was. No, there's just a guy with a gun. This would be a great place for a coven though. Maybe like trying to sneak out of the facility. We are getting massively distracted though, however. Oh no! Bad Geezer is burning down some of the new housing. That's definitely the meth heads that are cooking up out here, isn't it? Yes it is. Okay, anyway. So we're slowly moving towards a D10 time-lapse now. There's a couple more assets I want to include here, specifically from Seaside Resorts. I definitely think that the historical fire station would definitely be welcome in a build like this. Perhaps over this side. Okay, and then I want to kind of keep them all centered mainly around the town centre at least. And then we'll get the historical police station as well. Again, where do we want this one? We don't want it sort of... Then again, I'm trying to place it logically, and there is no logic to this part of America, so I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Why don't we go for one of these empty frames, and then we can just kind of have it totally saturated by sort of desert overgrowth during the time-lapse. So we'll throw that down there, and then we'll just sort of angle it so it's at an angle with the road. and then it can sort of just sit here with something else around it. But either way, that does give fire, which is clearly sorely needed based on what's going on over here. Hopefully these guys will send a fire truck out to deal with it. You alright, guys? Are you on strike or something? Are you okay? What's going on? You gonna come out? There is a blazing issue just across the road, but it doesn't like they want to do it anyway. So I was just about to say, well, it's a good job that we have provided main services for these guys, but they don't actually want to work. So we'll have to bear with that, I think, won't we? And then what there does seem to be, again, just kind of scattered almost on the outskirts of Goodsprings, is little mini industrial complexes. That is a very, very extravagant fire engine for such a small town, isn't it? That's definitely come from the inner city, hasn't it? It just looks a little out of place, I think. Maybe just a little. At least they're coming anyway, alright? But yes, back to the point I was trying to make, just sort of different little offshoots of the road. So, for example, this one right here, the road behind the school sort of bends off and then goes off on a straight angle, and then there's just a mini little industrial complex that looks there. It kind of looks like it's someone's own personal scrapyard, or where they're keeping at least kind of like broken down vehicles, from my impression I can see from Google Earth. So we can definitely do that. I think what we will do is actually grab a couple of these sort of classic vanilla assets from the industry stuff, because we do have a little bit of industrial demand, so it's also going to be nice to have the industry back in Ilos like that. Okay, and then we can just create like a little yard around them. Definitely a little bit of chain link fencing here will help with this vibe, so we'll get some of that as well. Let's grab the longer one and then put that back on the fence fill. And then let's go for this one here. And then it can kind of come across the road, if you like. And then what we will do is, just for the sake of saving time during the episode, is let's head to one of our current existing scrap yards and just take a little sample of it. Yes, it's kind of stuff like this, right? This is actually perfect for what we need. So if we were to grab some props, okay, we'll just sort of take this scrapyard here. And then let's take those for just as a hypothetical example. Of course, we'll do more of this during our time lapse. Yeah, and it just seems to be kind of like stuff like this. Just old random bits of junk and broken down cars and boxes and crates and stuff just in and around the town that seems to belong to certain people. Maybe they're kind of like fixer-uppers and, you know, they're maybe renovating them. But it's generally the vibe that we can get on board with, okay, just by doing this. And we'll also use it as an excuse to satisfy a little bit of industrial demand as well. But otherwise, guys, it's a pretty weird and simple build today. The town of Bad Geezer, inspired by Goodsprings in Nevada. In our detailed time lapse, we're just going to go ahead and carry on plopping down the housing with the themes and the styles that we've chosen here, and introduce a few more of these little kind of prop industrial chain link yards with overgrowth around them that seem to exist across Goodsprings, and then develop a really kind of thick, overgrown, almost green belt that sits in the dry desert to fill all of these spaces, because it is just overgrown from the main road up to the actual houses themselves. But the town is slowly coming alive now, which is nice. This is really cute. Yeah, and then get some pathways linked up as well. And generally just hope to make the town feel a little bit more alive around all its kind of key assets. Just wants a lot of overgrowth, basically. Then it should be alright. But either way, let's detail up Bad Geezer, and then we'll be right back. guys, let's have a detailing review, shall we? So this has turned into a really quaint town. I'll just sort of take a nice little tour through it here together. So at the front of the town, I've actually added in one of the vanilla billboards, which kind of looks like it's tied into an airline or something to do with planes based on the uniform, and I think you can make out the word wings here as well. Kind of thought this was appropriate to have over here because we have the boneyard nearby. Maybe a lot of people from Bad Giza sort of actually end up working at the boneyard, so maybe they have a little advertisement out here for positions at the boneyard. I thought might be quite appropriate, so we'll have that here. And then down the main road, alongside all our forest overgrowth, also added in a water tower with a little fence yard around it, and a little shed prop and a little pathway that takes people around the back of town. I definitely want the water tower for this vibe, right? It just screams rural town, so absolutely kind of on theme. And then of course we have our collection of little commercial assets here, just a row of convenience stores for people that need sort of bread or milk in the town. If you want anything sort of more significant, then of course you have to head into the city, or at least back to the next major town, which from here is actually quite a distance away, probably even the town down by the airport. Yeah, this has got a little bit more commercial over this side, hasn't it? Another alien billboard as well. I'm pretty sure actually there's an alien coven here, isn't there? Yes, there's a Jerry keeping a watch over this way. Whilst I think some drug dealing's happening over here. Yes, there we go. Yeah, Jerry's keeping watch. And then a few Candy's Oridon news crew is actually filming it as well. Little do they know what they're about to stumble across. Goodness gracious. Anyway, let's get back to a detailing review. So yes, nice and parking around the back of it with overgrowth again, and a little bit of chain link fencing with a pathway that helps feed people around the different blocks. And I'm really enjoying the kind of sparser usage of the housing here, not having them all so tightly packed like the rest of Ilos is. And then we've got some King Leno ranch houses down here as well, again with a little pathway cutting through that desert overgrowth. Also dropped in some oil texture around here as well, which is why the ground is ever so slightly sort of maroon in certain places. We've used that technique before. And then we arrive at our historical library, which is a fantastic asset. And as we come down the dirt road again, stopping at another sort of run-down, crap, broken house, we come down this road into a little yard now, which has had some prop detailing done to it. Brought in some little construction vibes and general sort of scrapyard themed props with a couple of those, again, industrial assets over there as well, and some prop detailing in the form of crates next to those. Before this does actually come back around here, where we can see the truck coming down. And then this meanders off into the wider Ilos desert that hooks back into the country road over here, of course. And I definitely appreciate the vibe of power lines coming through this area too. I did think about running some through the town, but that's quite a waste of nodes. I guess it could be an idea to maybe divert this line through Goodsprings instead. That way we would at least get the aesthetic of it near a town at least. But either way, our churchyard is now complete. Took inspiration again from Goodsprings. We saw those sort of juniper trees in a repeated pattern next to the church. So why not do it here? With a little bit of chain link fencing and the pattern with the graves. I think it's alright. And then lots of bushes and some taller choice trees with some rocks in front of the church. And of course it all just blends back in. It just feels so natural, I think is the word to take home here. I've really enjoyed this Goodsprings build. Yeah, it's very different to anything we've done in Ilos so far, which is very kind of grand and eccentric and covered in concrete. This is quite the opposite of that. Very sort of chilled, nice, simplistic rural build to enjoy. I did leave some spaces open as well, just for those little tufty desert bits. Don't want everything covered in overgrowth, of course. And then our little school complex sits quite tastefully here now, as it sort of spills around the back. We have a nice little school within the town. And then continue to place in more of our trailers over here alongside these little weird little scrapyards. We've also added in another one over this side as well. So over to it, here we go. And then dropped in the sort of auto and salvaged classic sign that we've used before. Next to some old scrap props and crates and containers and whatnot, and just general things that we see in and around Goodsprings in Nevada itself. There's a lot of scrap next to bush, if you like, in this part of the world. And it's been a really kind of fun, unique build to pull off. It's quite a different sort of odd style to build in cities. But I think the end product isn't too bad and sort of speaks for itself. And You know, you get this sort of cute little outer lying rural town that is very much sort of in the vein of Goodsprings, you know. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's outside of the main city, and it is just a quaint little American desert town that does exactly what it says on the tin, and I'm pretty happy with it. But otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed, likes, comments, and shares below really do help me out and bring more people to the channel. Even as much if you haven't enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a dislike as well. Like I mentioned, really cute, fun, themed build to take on this one. I hope it's managed to serve as at least entertainment and perhaps some form of inspiration as well for a super rural, non-touristic town in cities. Really fun projects to build, and we'll definitely tackle more of these as well. But nice to have yet another rural town in for Ilos. Please do enjoy some fairly brief cinematics, and I will see you next week for another Ilos project, which should be a fun one. Probably back in the Margrids or the lakefront, because the city is slowly wrapping up now. Slowly but surely, we're getting there, a little bit closer every week. But I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.